We're now going to factor any trinomial. I have a special method I call the AC method. So for example, suppose I ask you to factor the trinomial x squared minus 20x plus 51. I call this the AC method because we're given a trinomial looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. Any trinomial to start with looks like that. We are going to multiply the coefficient of x squared and the constant. That's going to give us our AC value. First step in this trinomial, it's understood that the a value is 1. We're going to multiply 1 times 51. So our first step is we multiply a times c. So in this case, it's 1 times 51, which is 51. Our second step is we have to find the factors of positive 51 that sum up or add to the coefficient of x, which in this case is negative 20. Because we have a positive when we multiply a times c, and we're adding to get a negative number, we're going to be doing two negatives. I am now going to proceed and get the factors of positive 51 that are going to add up to negative 20. And I do that, I have two negatives, negative times a negative. And we literally start with the number 1, negative 1. 1 into negative 1 into positive 51 is negative 51. 2 doesn't work, so we go to the next number that divides evenly, and that is 3. 3 goes into positive 51, gives us negative 3 into positive 51 is negative 17. And sure enough, we can see that negative 3 plus negative 17 is negative 20. So I am going to rewrite x squared. We're going to do a rewrite. We're going to rewrite x squared minus 20x plus 51. And we're going to rewrite it using the negative 3 and the negative 17 to replace the negative 20. We rewrite it like this: x squared. Now the negative 20x I can expand out, and it's going to look like this: negative 3x and negative 17x plus 51. We now have 4 terms, and they're perfect for doing a factor by grouping. Now we're going to do a factor by grouping. We pair the first two, and then we pair the last 2 terms. Working this, we see with the first 2, the factor common to both is x. And when we divide x squared by x, we get an x. Negative 3x divided by x is negative 3. But now the next term, you're leading with a negative 17x. So factors common to 17x and 51 would be 17, but because we're leading with a negative, we're going to factor out a negative 17. And sure enough, negative 17x divided by negative 17 is x. Positive 51 divided by negative 17 is negative 3. We now have x minus 3 common to both of the terms. It's not in factored form yet because we have a minus between them. So now we factor out the x minus 3, and now x minus 3 divided into x minus 3, they cancel, and we have an x. Negative 17x minus 3 with the x minus 3 cancels, and we have a negative 17. And now we have factored that problem. This problem not only works with x squared, it's going to work even if there's a coefficient to x squared. So let's do, as an example, let's factor 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. This does not have a 1x squared, but we're still going to use that AC method. So multiplying a times c means the coefficient of x squared with that. So our first step is ac, which becomes 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. Once we have this, we get the factors of negative 36 that add up to negative 5. I'm now going to set up, I am going to put a table. It has to multiply to a negative, so one is positive, one is negative, but it adds to a negative, so the larger, if you get rid of the plus minus, the larger of the two will be negative. So we have 1 and negative 36. That doesn't add to negative 5. 2 goes into that, negative 18. They don't add to negative 5. 3 goes into that, negative 12. That doesn't add to negative 5. The next one, 4, goes into negative 36, and we have negative 9. We've got the two that sum up to negative 5. We now are going to take our trinomial, and we're going to expand it so that it's now written with 4 terms. So we rewrite the minus 5x in the middle. So we will have 6x squared, and we can have the plus 4x and the negative 9x and minus 6. We've now gotten 4 terms. It's the factor by grouping problem. We're now going to group them in pairs. Looking at this, what's common factor of 6x squared and 4x will be 2x. 6x squared divided by 2x is 3x. 4x divided by 2x is plus 2. Now I'm looking at, I have a negative 9x and a negative 6. What's common to 9 and 6 is 3. That's the greatest common factor. But because this leads with a negative, I factor out a negative 3. Negative 9x divided by negative 3 is positive 3x. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. We now have 2 terms in common. We're now ready to factor out that 3x plus 2. We can now factor out the 3x plus 2. Working that, the 3x plus 2 comes out, and I almost think of it as you pull it down. You get rid of those, and you're left with this 3x plus 2 cancels. You have a 2x. This 3x plus 2 will cancel with this one, and you have a negative 3. And that is the factorization of that.